And we're back for another episode of the Bad Ideas Podcast with Rocky Pedden, the president of RevenueZen. Welcome, Rocky.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to this. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, do some jamming.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about RevenueZen. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so RevenueZen is a digital marketing agency, and we really focus more on like the SEO content side of things. So producing content, and like our focus is on kind of bottom of funnel type content. So hopefully driving leads for our clients. Like that's what we try to gauge ourselves against, not just marketing metrics. But yeah, that's really what we focus in on. And our background before that, the founder and then myself, he and I worked previously in sales, and we actually, RevenueZen originally started as like an SDR outsourced firm, and then over time moved into SEO. So, but definitely believe in like kind of a more holistic marketing approach to things. And we just felt like SEO was a good segment for us to kind of put our roots, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of people sell SEO that don't actually execute very well against it. And I thought it was really cool to learn a little bit about, how you guys kind of have an angle on it that's a little unique, a little more metric driven, and probably palatable for potential buyers that might be watching.
Yeah. I mean, I think like you and I talked about this previously, but like having the ability to like, for all your marketing channels to understand like the impact it has. I think that will just be really important moving forward. And like, it's something that I keep on seeing on LinkedIn. I keep on talking and commenting about is like intent. And I think like intent marketing is going to be something that becomes really popular because people want to know where their money's going. And I think the days of like checking a box, like doing something to check a box because like, you're supposed to, like, I think those days are kind of disappearing. And I think like kind of like how you guys operate and you're really transparent with your pricing. Like I think that's going to be the name of the game moving forward.
Yeah, well, we hope so. We'll do it together.
Yeah.
We'll meet you guys at the top. All right. So order of operations here to an operations leader. We're going to introduce the bad idea in a second, then spend 10 minutes destroying it for being the worst idea you've ever heard. And then we run out of bad stuff to say. We're going to try to make it a good idea. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. Let's rock and roll.
All right. Without further ado, the bad idea is Clickbait Extravaganza, a business that creates sensational headlines with no substantial content behind them, solely aimed at driving clicks.
Doesn't this already happen? Or...
Yeah, BuzzFeed. I mean, that's what's coming to mind right now.
Yeah. I mean, kind of just like what I just talked about, right? Like high intent marketing. It's like the opposite of that. I think the worst thing here is just like, you think about consumer behavior, and I think consumer behavior nowadays is getting much more intelligent. And like, I think like when we look at clickbait, a lot of people now are like, oh, that's clickbait, especially people who hold purse strings. Those people I think have their defenses and their guards up a lot more. So yeah, that's kind of right where my mind goes right at first. It's just not
avoid the clickbait.
Work. Yeah. I think I avoid that like the plague. I don't know. I don't get really trapped into anything anymore. And I don't really know any friends who do either, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm kind of getting there. I still, the Instagram forums get me. I don't like, and the ads are almost always clickbait, and the forums get me because it's so easy. You click twice and you've converted. And like, all right, let's see what this is. I don't know if that's more because I'm a marketer than because it's actually working. So there's like a research component to it. But, thinking about this, what immediately came to mind to me is that audience is the entire value behind clickbait. It's not really about the content behind it. It's about the audience you can create by having clickbait. That's like, your BuzzFeed. And if you're creating clickbait with no substantial content behind it, you're basically building yourself up in like an audience of useless traffic and useless attention. So it's like, it'd be like building an oil refinery that burns the oil. So like you can't sell anything. It's like, let's create a lot of traffic that's useless that we can't market to anymore. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah. It just has no point or no like defined exit point from your site, right? Like you're not going to be able to sell them anything substantial or really anything at all. Things not substantial too. So, Have you ever heard of AdFly? I've not. What's that?
Oh, I don't think they're still in business. It was one of those like interstitial advertising companies where you spend like $100 and they give you like 100,000 impressions, but it's really like the interstitials and bit.ly links.
Oh,
so you're getting like, it's like this, like totally useless traffic. They didn't even click on your ad that just happens to see your stuff while the next page is loading.
Yeah. I remember back in the day. So I worked for a while. I worked for a healthcare publishing company, and they had all these different, it's the largest healthcare publishing company in North America. And like, they kind of were battling the shift from like a actually published paper physical product to a digital environment. And, they had a lot of traffic, and like, that was always one of the things that they would ask us to sell is like these impressions. And it's like, how do you tie that into any sort of like marketing outcome? And, you really you can't really, and it's so hard to do. Yeah, I know. Right. Yeah. And,
YouTube execs right now are like, ban this video.
But yeah, like I just like, that's what my mind goes to. Like I see that like clickbait idea, and it's just like, yeah, you're going to get so many impressions, and it's going to be super cheap. Cost per impression is so low. But then like inevitably when the reporting would come out, it'd be like, yeah, you had 400,000 impressions and like 2 clicks, and like one of them was accidental.
Yeah. And the others didn't actually read the link before they clicked on it. They just liked the image, so they clicked through.
Yeah.
I was reading a book. You ever heard of Felix Dennis?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I was reading his book last week. Really funny guy. Worth reading the book just because he's funny outside the lessons from his experience. And he openly talks about how he used attractive women to sell almost all of his magazines, like even the computer tech magazines. He just put attractive people there, and people will buy the magazine because there's an attractive person on the cover. Maybe he found the good in a bad idea like this, because that's effectively like what it's creating. But at the same time, I think everyone's fighting so hard for attention, and now you have steroid Twitter where everything's reaching like 10 million people per post. It's kind of a battle of substance. Maybe it's fortuitous that we're talking about this with you, because you guys make content that does align with the demand. So maybe like you're not creating the clickbait interest, you're just answering it, which is where that whole intent is. Like there's interest, let's create an anchor for it to respond to.
And honestly, like one of our strategies too is like, if we look at keywords, like we want to understand keywords that have high intent too, right? It's like, because there's a lot of keywords out there that will drive a lot of traffic and like get a lot of views. But like ultimately, like there might be a keyword that gets, let's say like, 100,000 views or 100,000 search volume every month or something like that. And there's another keyword that maybe gets 100, but the conversion rate off that 100 is way higher because the intent from it is just so much more important. And so we actually might find that writing content to those 100 searches is more valuable than writing content for the 100,000 searches, just in terms of like generated pipeline. And yeah, I think like that's what the world I think is going to move to, is as we become more intelligent, as we incorporate AI, there's going to be more opportunity for us to be like very specific about what we're looking for and land exactly what we want to look at. So I think, especially in today's day and age, the idea of like fantastical, ads out there just to get clicks, I think that's going to really disappear. And terrible business idea to spin up right now, I would say. Yeah.
I have a friend, his name is Alex Jekyllin. I'm probably pronouncing his name poorly. He's from Slovenia. He's in New York. He was one of the inventors of the PNG format. That was his like first massive distribution, but he's building a product now that's absolutely wild. It takes the point of purchase into the context of discovery. So imagine you guys write an article, people learn about a product and they want to buy it in the article. That's what his tech does. So it eliminates this whole click stream away from the content and makes the content the point of sale. Because that like so much gets lost between the click and the actual decision to purchase, and so many other things are kind of competing for attention.
Yeah.
You can imagine if people could buy the second they make the decision to buy, like it's a better experience, higher conversion rate, less middlemen, just a whole lot of value created all at once.
I mean, yeah. And you also have like the Amazon effect too, right? Where like now we can go to Amazon and we can click buy and it's on our doorstep. Like 12 hours later or sooner. And it's the same principle where, I can just buy this right now and not have to go through all this other garbage and trash.
Enter my info.
Yeah. And it's just like kind of like what you said with Instagram. I can just autofill this in 2 clicks and it's like done and we're ready to rock and roll with whatever it may be. That's cool.
You ever get those articles on, do you use Twitter?
A little bit, but I'm not a huge social media user outside of LinkedIn.
Healthy.
Healthy. Yeah. My wife and I both kind of made that conscious decision. I don't know, maybe in the last couple of years, we both used to love like scrolling Instagram, and occasionally I'll still do that, I suppose. But for social media, mostly now, like on Facebook, I use it mostly like to talk with my brother. Like we'll do like Facebook phone calls or whatever. So
that's smart usage. If you'll permit me to go on a little tangent, I got to pull up this author. I've been trying to read or try to finish this book, and I've probably recommended it to like 100 people since I started it because it's the most interesting book I've ever read. But it's called Evolve Your Brain by Joe Dispenza. It starts with this guy's absolutely like unbelievable story. He shatters his spine in a triathlon and then uses like mental focus to drive like healing that all the Western medicine says would be impossible in a matter of months.
That's cool.
And then the book like goes into like how the brain works and responds to stimuli and everything. And where I am now, it talks about how even small snippets of information constitute your environment. And your brain is constantly rebuilding and reinforcing neural networks based on the environment you expose it to. So a lot of like social scrolling is effectively programming you. Which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
So imagine you have an algorithm that's trying to figure out what you like, and then you have your brain that's recalibrating the way that it's wired based on what you expose to it. You have these like machines kind of calibrating themselves to each other, which is how you get like an Instagram feed that just shows you things that give you dopamine hit after dopamine hit.
Yeah, that's really interesting. On a couple notes, like as kind of a tangent to that, I definitely have heard stories of other people who have like been diagnosed with like, I remember reading a story of a woman who was diagnosed with cancer in her eye, and there was no treatment for it at the time. And she just essentially meditated, and what ended up happening after she died, not from cancer, but years and years later, she had gone blind in that eye. But what they dissected it, and they found out that like her body had created like this protected barrier around the cancer that was there. And then that totally cut it off from the rest of her body. And they didn't know that, like, we don't know how this happened. And, and so like, it kind of goes back to like this book that you just mentioned, which I actually just, bought on Amazon because I'm always looking for a good book, but
Amazon works.
Yeah, that's how it works. Right. And I'm super satisfied right now with that experience. So yeah, that was the big one. And I can't remember what I was going to say else, but maybe we'll come back.
Well, while you're thinking about it, he talks about an episode where they prove that you can reprogram your brain to interpret senses as each other, like they're interchangeable. So one study they reference is where people are blindfolded and they're taught to see with their tongue. And they can like people are throwing balls at them and they can catch the ball 9 out of 10 times by seeing with their tongue. Which is just to prove that the brain can change the way that it wires feedback to you.
Yeah.
So like outside of just the healing, I don't know. That's what's so fascinating to me is that it's really not hardwired. Like the whole like old dog, new tricks has nothing to do with your brain and everything to do with the fact that you keep looking at the same stuff every day.
Right.
So if you spend 100 years looking at the same thing, your brain is super hardwired to that. But the second you introduce new stimuli, it starts to rebuild. And it's in perpetuity. It does that.
That's fascinating stuff. I'm really interested in like the psychedelic research side of things. And it seems really similar to that, right? Where like, you're just letting your brain, I guess the analogy that they use oftentimes is like your brain right now is like this mountain, and like you have like these ski lanes that you constantly use the same ski lane every single time, the same run. And then like, intentional psychedelic use can like kind of reset all that and allow you to explore these different pathways and solving the same problem, but in a different way, which I think is fascinating. It kind of gets to the crux of what you're talking about. And the other thing I was going to mention, I have a friend of mine who worked at Google for a while, and I think we all have experienced, like, we're talking with friends about something like brand new to us, and all of a sudden we were getting like Instagram ads for that thing, right? And I brought that up to him, and he was like, actually, it's scarier than them listening through your microphone. It's the algorithm is so good at predicting what's going to happen next in your life that's part of the algorithm too. And he was like, you probably don't believe me when I tell you that, but it's like, that is he's like, to him, that's the scary thing, was it's so good at understanding like your life and the things that are going to happen in it next, that it will kind of get in front of it and predict what's going to be coming down the pipe for you, which is pretty wild.
Well, I mean, it's routine, right? At the end of the day, we think of our lives as these like unique experiences, but in reality, we're creatures of habit. The Joe Dispenza book talks about that too, about like how left brain is more automatic and reactive, right brain is perceptive.
Yeah.
And as we get older, we move further and further left. Just in general, that's how we are as
Interesting.
human. You never lose the capacity to learn. You just stop exercising it because you keep doing the same things over and over again. I'm
so happy to hear that, because like, I like the whole, like you mentioned, like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like I've always been like, man, I'm like dreading that. And I try to like, like in my, like you talk to any of my business partners or anybody on my team and they'll tell you like, I have a new hobby like every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I just want to try a bunch of new stuff. And I can't imagine my life any other way, like that's just kind of how I operate. So I'm glad to hear that I'll still be able to do that when I'm 60.
Yeah, I mean, just reading alone, continues to stimulate you and expose you to new ideas, and keeps everything fresh. I mean, bringing it back to our whole like clickbait extravaganza. And I don't want to completely go there, because like, for the record, I believe like COVID is a real thing, but when you look at like those 2 years, there was a whole lot of things said in both directions that was just like, hey, people are saying this now, so I'm going to say this. Now everyone's saying this and everyone believes this.
Right.
Like was there, I mean, this isn't even directional. Like, was there ever like a consensus point that was blasted out to the entire world that helped a lot of people over that time period? It's like,
I would imagine so, right? I mean, I'm sure there were some things out there that were, especially if we're talking specifically to COVID, like, like even like some people who were like, like get good sleep, get vitamin D, get vitamin C, you'll be totally fine, right? And it's like, in general, like, that's true. You probably will feel better if you're usually in a house and you're not moving, you're sitting down all day, and you get up, you go outside, you like get some sunlight,
have some vitamin D.
Yeah, Huberman. I don't know if you're familiar with the Huberman podcast, the Huberman Lab.
No.
So he talks a lot about that. He's a neuro researcher at Stanford.
Yeah.
And I mean, he essentially is like, if you can do like these 5 things, and let's see if I can remember all 5 of them, but it's essentially like get 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. First thing you do is expose yourself to direct sunlight outside, even if it's cloudy, like you're still getting lux, which is like just a unit of measurement for light. And then it was exercise every day, like a certain amount of water every day, really basic stuff. And make sure that you're not just sitting down for like more than like, a few hours at a time. Like you're standing up and like walking up and down stairs or whatever. And I mean, I think like if we all did that and we just like committed to it, we would feel a lot better. And I think that type of thing definitely came out in COVID. I saw a lot of people being like, just do these things and you'll be fine. And I was like, well, I don't know if that you'll just be fine. But you'll definitely feel better if you're living this like sedentary lifestyle. So,
Well, I mean, and the reverse too. You have the people who went from being relatively active to like being locked inside for extended periods, and like you can call it COVID, but you're really sick because you're not seeing human beings or moving at all.
I think that's definitely a big thing. I think for me, like, was like we saw this with our kids, right? Because we have two during COVID. We had one. Our son was like, I guess one. Yeah, he's 1 year old. His birthday was. He turned 1 in February of 2020, so right before things shut down, and we had to keep him home from school for like 6 months or whatever. And I definitely saw that, like the impact of like the no socialization, from going to being in daycare 5 days a week to being out of daycare 5 days a week. Like I can certainly appreciate that like as humans, we need to be in contact with other humans. And like, there's obviously like a benefit, like granted, like, you know, getting on Discord with your buddies every night and playing Call of Duty or whatever, like, I mean, it's better than nothing, but not nearly as good as getting together in person and like doing something fun. If you can be outside getting some lux, like even better.
So. How's he doing now? Was it like party time when he got back to school and saw his friends?
Yeah, he's doing great.
He's 2, right? So he's not in school, but like,
well, now he's
again, you know?
he's gonna turn 5 now. Because God, COVID, I can't
believe
it
was that long.
Yeah, Jeez. Yeah, it's pretty wild when you think about that. Like 2020 was a long time ago. Yeah, and yeah, he's doing great. Like, you know, we were really fortunate. Like, we had a next door neighbor she was in high school. She was a senior, and she was, I mean, super just mature for her age, I would say. Like, she was super entrepreneurial. She had like her own like couple side hustles that she did, and she was I think in high school she had worked like 2 years of her college like credits down by going to community college locally. And you know, she came over and she babysat him every day, and which was great, you know.
Hero.
Yeah, she was fantastic. So I think it probably impacted him less than other kids. And also he hadn't had like that social development. He's only 1 at the time. And so like it wasn't as impactful for him, but you know, I've definitely taught with friends who had older kids who were in like elementary school, and like they tell me like those 2 years were just like massive impact to their kids, unfortunately, which, you know, that sucks.
Yeah. But, I mean, you lose the social interaction and it's replaced with clickbait with no substantial content behind it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, and maybe, I mean, man, geez, I hate saying this, but maybe it is a good business model, right? Just like getting people, and if you're just looking to make money, you're not looking to be additive to society in any way, you know, potentially, you know, if you get paid on the per click basis.
Well, let's flip our hats and try to turn this into something good. If, you know, so it's Clickbait Extravaganza, right? So we're trying to get like lots and lots and lots of volume. I'm trying to figure out what AI is going to do to the whole like search engine game. I know you guys are in the SEO space, but like now you're getting indexed by totally different machines and you're getting weighed in real time.
Yep.
And delivered in snippets. So like you have to kind of rank yourself and program these new machines to paraphrase what you're doing. You know, bringing that back into like the clickbait space as people start using bots to do more of their searching and summarizing, and getting like another layer removed from the actual high value intent content. Like, do you think there's something there? Or like instead of looking at it as now you have a search engine and a bot on top of it, maybe like is there a way the bot could bring the person closer? So clickbait with insubstantial content, which is bot summary, actually does become something more of value instead of just more clutter.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I think too, like, because so much content, I think today is written to just produce content. And I mean, and that has only been like exasperated by AI. And so I think where I see AI kind of in like, you know, clickbait potentially being really beneficial is like if I have an AI bot that's out there and I just say like, hey, I'm interested in this topic, whatever it might be. I want you to scour the top 10 search pages of search results for Google, and you can tell it like specific things to look for. And then it can like, you know, sort through all that potentially BS content and then just be like, you should read like these 2 articles, or these are the 2 solutions that get like the best aggregate, you know, reviews from like G2 and Capterra, you know, whatever it might be, if you're looking for B2B services or something different, if it's B2C or D2C or whatever. So I definitely see like there could be like some really good benefit there. And then from like a clickbait perspective, I mean, if I am a persona inside of a search of some kind, you know, president of, you know, B2B company, all of a sudden I can start, I mean, they're like the TAM for that is enormous, right? Probably a couple million people. All of a sudden you can like send out an ad of that information that you just gathered through that system and like blast it to people. And that could be really beneficial to presidents, or, you know, or people in the B2B world, in some way. So I don't know. I mean, there could be there could be some legs to that, I think, to a certain degree, and more or less that's kind of reskinning the outbound game but like incorporating all these other attributes into it.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I mean, so it's super, super interesting. Like finding another way to simplify the search process is like massively, massively powerful. But I'm thinking also on the inbound side of things, like it's as much as Google has been transformative for the last like 25 years. And not saying that Google's going to go away in any capacity, but it's also made it like relatively inefficient to discover really good things.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy for people to, try to game the system because it's relatively unintelligent in its present state. And when I'll give you a story. So when I was at Rally Point, if we call it clickbait, our ads were clickbait ads. People would complain about them, but the ads that we put out into the world were literally the content you would see the second you signed up. So like you'd click on something because you thought it was funny and you'd sign up and you'd see that exact thing that you clicked on. And my theory, maybe we have enough evidence at this point to prove that it was more than theory, but my theory was that it was it wasn't clickbait. It was like high value content because they were clicking on the thing they wanted and getting that exact thing.
Yeah.
Like even more of that exact thing when they hit it. So bringing that back to, can we make clickbait valuable? Maybe, I mean, I don't want to do a MAGA slogan. That's too political. Like make clickbait great again, but something parallel that's not offensive. Like, is there a way to make clickbait non-derogatory and directed at the high value content? And is that what this tech helps us do?
That's a good question. I think there's definitely a possibility, right? Like, and I think like, even to your point about like Google, essentially, like we all know, like the SEO game, like it's a game. Like you can gamify it, and I think that's one of the reasons. This is coming from an SEO agency owner. Like I think we will see over time, and I think we're already experiencing this, where people will have less and less trust in SEO, right? And so I think what we're going to need is like a way to track more holistically across, display ads and paid media, as well as your organic search and your direct traffic and all those things. All those things do play together. Like we know that, right? And there's certain level of like experience that consumers have that will be impacted by these different marketing channels. And so I think like that's where clickbait can definitely, we should probably call it something other than clickbait, but net new term.
We need to reclaim.
Yeah. But I definitely think that could certainly be part of that marketing ecosystem moving forward.
Yeah, I used to laugh when people would call it clickbait because it'd be like, well, you just call it clickbait because all your high value stuff is boring. Nobody wants to click on it. The second is interesting or sensational, it's clickbait, regardless of the value it delivers back. But maybe that's the value in this business. If you can find a way to make super high value stuff really irresistible, then you have something of supreme value. And my hope is that's what these bots are doing for us.
I think we kind of see that already a little bit, like in the style of like, Alex Hormozy, if you will, his whole thing is like make an offer that is like, you would feel stupid saying no to, right? And that's kind of like a clickbait tactic, but there's a ton of value built into it if they follow that thing. And I mean, obviously he's been wildly successful, and I think that will be part of marketing in the future for sure.
I think it's properly brilliant that he does all of the things that he's teaching you how to do to you while he's teaching you how to do them. So he's like, $100 million offers is my offer to you. Read this book and I'll explain to you this. And, end of every chapter, you have to log into my lead magnet so I can market things to you and then get an equity stake in your business when you make it. It's, he's a smart guy.
Yeah. He means cracked the nut on something. For sure.
Yeah. And I mean, now at this point, he like owns the $100 million brand. Like it's a Hormozy thing.
Yeah.
So he can, I mean, it's like a Trump move. He can just go slap that on anything he wants and it'll have some kind of increase in value. At some point our kids will be sick of it. They're like, oh no, it's another Hormozy sign.
Right.
But, he'll be a billionaire.
Right. Yeah. By then.
That's the way to go.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. This has been super fascinating. We kind of like talked about the future of search. I think we didn't really talk too much about your business, but I hope anyone who's watching who is interested in the organic space reaches out to you immediately, because you guys really get it. There's a lot of value there. Is there anyone on the team that you recommend they contact, or should people go directly to you? Like, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, they can always come directly to me. That's totally fine. It depends. I guess it depends on what people are looking for. We have an AE. His name's Mike. He's great. He totally understands the space, and he does a lot of what we do to kind of work with people first is like competitive analysis, like see what your competitors are doing and what keywords they're going after. So he's the best person for that. But I can always make those introductions. And then if people just want to jive and jam out on like talking search, like our CGO, Ken Marshall, one of the other owners of RevenueZen, is like, he's the brains behind like what we do. Like I operationalize everything. I make sure that we're in compliance with all the states, like all the things that you and I were talking about before we started recording. And like my whole goal is to like free up Ken and Alex, our founder, to like go think of big ideas and like take that to market. And me just like, I'm just going to make sure that we're doing it legally and that we're paying everybody and that we're not going to get some massive tax bills that we weren't expecting. So, but yeah, Ken is really the guy like to engage with on LinkedIn. He and Alex both post on LinkedIn quite a bit. So yeah, those two guys are really good resources too.
Awesome. Cool. We'll make sure we have some links in this when it goes live. But super grateful for you giving us some time. I think this went to some interesting places, and I'll have to do this again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Nick. Thanks
So much. All right, we'll do it again.
Yeah.